Morning, everybody. I guess a lot of you, a lot of familiar faces of people that have been on our webinars before, but if it is your first webinar, just a really bit of a run through on what we have been doing. This is week 4 of us working remotely. We're being pretty well set up to work remotely, which actually I know is a bit of a luxury because it definitely has taken some people a bit of getting used to. And some other chambers are not running webinars at all yet. So we know that we've really hit the ground running, and that's a big testament to our team for just getting on and also to the community we've got that have let us kind of test things out on you, and everybody's been very good and actually been brilliant at the feedback on what we've been doing too. We do 4 webinars a week. So on a Tuesday afternoon, there's a coffee and cake. You have to bring your own cake and your own coffee, but a bit of virtual networking, which has been really good and interesting, and a nice safe space for people to share their issues and get some feedback. And other members have been helping answer questions and that, so that's been fab. Tuesday evenings are our guide to. So this week was a guide to communications. Week before was a guide to cash flow. And Wednesday sessions are all about supporting people. So whether it's about mental health and well-being, or it's about motivation or working remotely, those are the kind of topics we've been focusing on Wednesdays. And then today's session, our Thursday ones are all about support for your business. So, we're hearing stories about what businesses are doing, what advice that they can give to you to keep your business going, because it's going to be really important as we come out of this that we've got strong businesses and an idea of how you're going to survive and thrive out of this. And the Chamber's been doing a lot of lobbying and talking to governments as well, and making sure that we're taking the issues from businesses straight back to government, because they are listening. They're definitely listening, and they're adapting their policies and doing things that they're being asked. You can't do them all, of course they can't, but they're certainly making sure that they're paying attention to what lots of the business organisations are telling them. I've just come off a Scottish Chamber network call with the Secretary of State for Scotland, and the messages there, while there have been lots of UK government support and lots of things coming out, there are still gaps, and they want to know what people are facing. So we were discussing, for example, Walker's Shortbread today, who are being put at a competitive disadvantage because they're struggling to actually continue to do business as usual. There is no such thing as business as usual, of course, but we know our manufacturers have had a lot of issues about social distancing. Should they open? Should they open? Should they stay closed? What should they do? And everybody wants to make sure their staff are safe. But we've been raising this morning continued issues about people that are self-employed, and businesses that are falling through cracks in the business support, particularly also differences in north and south of the border in the ways that we've had some advice or some guidance that comes through, and some businesses are just not sure. So the construction industry is one that's very different. So a Borders construction company can go into Carlisle and just north of England and actually carry on its work as normal, whereas it can't do that on its own patch. And also we have got businesses in Scotland who are at a competitive disadvantage because their English competitors or others in the wider world are full pelt carrying on as normal, and others following the advice up here. So it's a bit grey area, which is not good. And then what's ease of lockdown going to look like? The governments are all talking about what that will look like, looking at what other countries are doing, but we're being very cautious and just trying to make sure that every industry that needs that extra support gets it when lockdown does begin to be lifted. But also we're pushing for things like the furlough scheme to be extended past May, so that businesses have got the capacity to stage whatever coming out of lockdown looks like. So yeah, interesting times. So I'm kind of going to get out of the way there. I think the only other thing to highlight is, if you haven't seen our Partners for Business programme, we launched that with our Platinum and Enterprise partners. So there is some brilliant support available for businesses. They're taking part in our webinars. They're making sure that they're kind of writing commentary for us for our website, but they're also going to be mentoring businesses. So If you want some short and sharp help right now because you're in crisis or you can't cope with all the work you've got, or you're trying to work out how do you create a recovery plan, then please get in touch with Ross or any of our team and ask for some of that mentoring support, because there's some amazing contacts in our local partners that could really help you. So that's really all I've got to update on. I'm going to hand over to Alistair first, who's then going to hand over to Dale. And please remember, any questions you've got, drop those into the chat, and then we'll do a Q&A session at the end, and Ross will look after that. So thanks very much for taking the time to come and be on our webinars. We really appreciate it. And Alistair, if you want to unmute, over to you.
Good morning, everyone.
Thanks.
Nice to get out of the office. Hopefully you can all see me. Hopefully you can. I'm quite pleased with myself because I've only just started using Teams, and I've discovered that you can blur the background, which saved me having to tidy the office. So anyway, these are challenging times. I don't need to tell you that. It's horrendous. I think most of us feel like we've been punched in the stomach. I think a lot of us don't know where to turn, and we're really just looking for, I think a lot of us are looking for some input. Alison's alluded to that, just how we're sort of, there's obviously all the government input and so on, but we also need to look to ourselves and look at what we can do to push our businesses forward during this time. And I think if there's one thing, oh, sorry, I need to share my screen, don't I? Can you all still hear me? Yeah, good. If there's one thing you need to do, it's to use this time. And sorry, I'm just having a wee tech issue at this end. My PowerPoint is not changing slide. Yes, it is. I think it's really important that you use this time and use this opportunity. I think a lot of people maybe don't realize how short this period is going to be when they look back on it. And it seems like an everlasting road just now. But I think when we get to the end of it, you don't want to be in a position to think, well, what did I actually do with that time? And for me, it's a time when people should be revisiting their brand. And I think a time to see it as an opportunity. And I want to do, I'm just going to speak for 10 minutes, but I'm going to kick off with a little sort of lesson from another brand, which isn't, it's not really a brand, but I'm going to treat it as a brand. And this brand right now is recognized and followed worldwide, no matter whether you're a 5-year-old here or a 105-year-old in Wuhan. And that brand has burned 3 things into our minds. And that 5-year-old, when they're 105, they'll still remember this. Those 3 things are these. 6 months ago, if you'd said, what's the significance? You know, soap and water, 2 meters apart, stay home. So what's that all about? Now everybody right across the world is recognizing that message. In fact, I heard a really fascinating story the other day about how they're using glove puppets to teach the indigenous peoples, I think it was the Cree in Canada, about social distancing and so on, because it's a concept that's completely alien to them. But right across all these boundaries, this message is resonating. And if I'm being a bit tongue-in-cheek here, but if that was a business and had a brand, that business would be called Let's Stay Alive, and that would be its brand message. And what is the secret of its effectiveness? Pretty much this. And you really don't need to be told what the benefits are, whether you're, you know, a 5-year-old or 105. You know that's one of the things you can do to stay alive and stay safe. And it's a very easily relatable, very easily communicable idea. As I said, that was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, a little bit of a stretch to call it a brand, but the lesson that we can take from this is this. Use this time to ask yourself, is your brand being as clear as that? Or are you just another whatever it is you do? Because if you are, you need to ask yourself why, and promise yourself you'll do something about it. Because, as I said, this is a time of opportunity. And some people feel uncomfortable talking about it as an opportunity because it seems, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. But it is, and if it makes you feel more comfortable about it, call it a silver lining to this hideous black cloud we're under. And as I said, it is going to be shorter than you think it is. It looks like an endless road just now, but it isn't. It's quite a finite window before things open up again. And you want to come out of that as strong as possible and being able to look back and say, I did everything I could to stay alive. And as Alison said, survive, not just survive, but thrive. And just to digress for a second, I talked about this being a time of opportunity. I have written a guide which has been put out, I think, through Chamber, but it's, the link is at the end of this presentation, to how to see it, you know, why it's okay to keep building your brand at this time. And I think, you know, if you want to get that, you can just download it for free. So use this time, use it wisely, and use it to do this with your brand. Use it to review, to rethink, to rebuild, and just make sure you're coming out the other end stronger because of it. But where should you start? So somebody says brand to you, you think of all these things. It's a multifaceted thing with an awful lot of touch points, and people's first instinct is the visual, and that's very true because the visual is very important. There's people base snap judgments on whether to buy from you, base buying decisions on snap judgments quite often, and that snap judgment is often visual. But here's the thing. I'll just let you read that. There's no point at all in having the most amazing visual branding if it's on a shaky foundation of a poor message. So, as I said, before you worry about how you look, spend your time focusing on this. And the good news is, it doesn't necessarily mean spending a lot of money. It doesn't even mean spending any money. It might just be a case of taking a step back, looking at the language you're using. So we're not talking about it having to be an all-embracing upturn of your whole business. So if I'm talking about focusing on your core brand message during this time, what is a brand message? Is it just sounds like sort of brand speak? But there's a lot of talk around nowadays about brand story and brand message. Some ways it's semantics. There's, you know, they're much the same thing. Basically, think of it this way. Think of it as what makes Porsche and not Ford, or Burger King, not McDonald's. Why did Home Bargains talk a different language than John Lewis? It's kind of slightly intangible, but it's DNA, effectively. It's values, essence, story, difference. And think of it this way, this is how important it is, because it should run through your basically everything you do, like the letters in a stick of rock. It should be any point you cut into that stick of rock, that message should still be evident, whether it's your social media or your restaurant interior or your website, even the non-visual aspects of your brand, like your telephone manner. So that's why brand message is so important. There's three key areas. There's a few areas of your brand message you could be looking at, but the three key things are clarity, relevance, and remarkability. And starting with the first of those, be clear. Is it clear what you do? I go onto websites sometimes and it takes me 5 minutes to work out what the business actually does, let alone what it could do for me. So be clear about what you do, why you do it, what drives you, why you get out of bed. You know the saying about people buy why you do, not what you do. Who you do it for, who your audience is. It should be clear who you're speaking to, how you do it, what the process is, what's involved. Is it a 10-minute process? Is it 6 months? Where you do it? Are you local? Are you online? Are you national? The difference you'll make to people and the difference you'll bring to their lives, and the difference between you and others, between you and your competitors. And if you're not clear about those things, you'll lose out. And if you confuse people, you'll lose out, because they don't hang about to work out. It's up to you to point out very clearly through your brand messaging and the visual branding that accompanies that, what you're going to do for people and the difference you're going to make in their lives. It's not up to them to have to work it out. Nobody cares about your business. They really don't. And all they care about is this, and I'm sure you've heard this acronym, what's in it for me. That's really all they care about. And you've got to show them. If they've got a problem, they need to know that you're a relevant solution. They need to know that, for example, if they desperately need a spanner, you're not offering them a nail. And worse still, they're not even clear what you're offering them. Be remarkable. Can't stress it enough. It's fine to be average, but it's not going to get you noticed. So when you're reviewing your brand message, just ask what's remarkable about it. How is it different? How does it set you apart from others? And lastly, just put on your customer's shoes, step back and just ask yourself, if you were somebody else, would you buy into you? This sort of thing isn't remarkable. This is the kind of stuff you see in magazines and on the sides of vans, and it just means nothing. It just leaves people cold. It does nothing to build your brand at all. So just avoid all this kind of generic speak. And only then, when you've got your brand message in position and you're clear about what you stand for and your DNA and everything else, start looking at your visual brand. And you can say that these things run in tandem. You can run them in parallel. It's not as clear cut as you sit down and do an exercise to work out your brand story, and then 3 o'clock on the next Tuesday you sit down and start your visual brand. They're running in parallel, but it's the priority by far goes to the brand story, because without the brand story, the rest is nothing. So where to start? I'm not going to go into this because we just don't have time, but I'm happy to answer in the questions any questions you might have about where you think the priorities lie. There's a whole range of things from across your visual branding that you can tackle first. But what I would say is just think about this kind of thing as well. A lot of people don't think about this, and maybe it's my architect background, I don't know, but this makes me cringe when I think of a busload of tourists getting off and seeing this. I just think, this is the kind of thing people need to think. Step outside, literally and metaphorically, step outside and look at what other people are seeing outside and inside your premises and at every touch point of your brand, and just don't overlook the stuff like this, because it does your brand no favor. So take this time to visit all this kind of stuff about your brand. And one thing I would say is, don't be afraid to start again. Some people labor on with a brand that is just doing them no favors. It's broken. It's just doing nothing for them. It's better to start from scratch rather than find yourself in 5 years' time with something that's just, you put a lot of money into, a lot of time and effort, and it's doing nothing for you. It's worth just winding it back. Finally, don't do that, because sticking your head in and hoping that when you pull it out, it's all gone away, this nasty big situation's all gone away and it's all going to go back to normal. It isn't, and you need to be well positioned to get started in pole position. So being an ostrich is not going to work. Don't do that either, because lots of people are just, I've seen people on social media, they just don't know where to turn, they don't know what to start with, they don't know what to tackle. And that's why hopefully today I've given you a bit of a focus for something very useful to busy yourself with, rather than sharing cat memes. So, it's something that will be a long-term investment in your business. So it's not just about this crisis. This is all stuff you should be doing anyway, but it's a case of using this opportunity to do it. Don't waste it, and start now. Because if you don't, you could find yourself in a year's time wishing you had. So I referred to that guide. It's there. If you want to download it, just go to the site. You can also find it on the homepage of the website. So if you just remember creativemongrel.com. And that's me. Thanks very much, and good luck to you all for taking this forward and for surviving and thriving and staying well throughout this. Thanks for having me.
Hi, thanks, Alistair. Hello, everyone. It's Dale from Malmaison here. Just checking if you can hear me okay. Okay. I think some really good points, Alistair. And if I just was to kind of link off what Alistair said, and in terms of the opportunity piece, I think it's really important. And there's a famous piece of philosophy which says preparation and opportunity are two key things you'll need for success. And in a business where that preparation is really around what are the things that we do and how are we looking at our business, what does our brand look like, and what are the actions we taking to try and make sure we do come out of this successful. I've got a couple of things. One, I'll just tell you what we've done at Malmaison so far, and then I've really the whole point of what I'd like to share with you today is kind of 10 things really that we're having to think about around maybe tips in terms of a recovery plan and how you might approach it, what you might look to consider, what should be included, and how you can actually maybe go about it. But first, just for a quick minute with Malmaison, we officially closed the doors the 27th of March. We have a team of about 90 people, of which 82 of those are currently furloughed. So 8 people remain in our business, and that's really primarily for the purpose of maintaining and securing the building, and obviously communications processes with the team, and then naturally looking at how are things going to look when we do get the ability to go ahead and reopen, and So that's kind of where we're at in terms of the hotel business itself. You've got 4 kind of key sectors feeding in. You've got your corporate sector, groups, leisure, and events, which feed into our hotel. So when we come to kind of look at that recovery plan, the first element is to kind of look at what's been feeding us historically, but more importantly is what's the trends, what's the marketplace going to look like, and how do we believe it's going to change? Because the reality is it is going to change. There's so much unknown around COVID, and there's so much changing daily that we need to be prepared for change. Now, so what the first thing we're trying to do before we look at a bounce back plan is to try and work out what the trends of the next 18 months, 24 months, or beyond that might be, and where they might come from. And coupled with each of those segments that feed into our business and how they might recover and what sort of timelines they might take to recover. So if I to give you an example of that, one of the first trends that we would look at, because one of the clear messages kind of coming through is in terms of preparing yourself personally for COVID, the 3 words that are talked about a lot are sleep, nutrition, and exercise. So those 3 words will, if we're honest, are a staple of our life and have been for forever, but they're very much in the tongue of how people are operating on a daily basis today. And in a hotel, there are 3 things that can exist quite easily. So if I was to look at nutrition as an example, then I would consider all areas of where food or beverage are consumed in my hotel and really ask the question, what could change there to feed and place our business in a better position to match that nutritional need or that potential desire. And a very simple example would be looking at what we offer at breakfast, and is it outdated? Does it need updated? And is it going to be enough in terms of the traveller, the people that will travel in the next 12 to 18 months? Because they will become more demanding, we believe, in terms of what the nutritional offer that we have. So, very simple action looking from that trend would be to look at the offerings we have and look at the nutritional values that we place, and then that develops further into how might we label a buffet rather than is it enough to name the food? Do we need to name the benefit of the food potentially? So, if we're offering a chia pudding, what does a chia pudding do for you? And actually, that explanation is offered on your menus. So it's taking every single aspect of your business and being prepared to look at it and question it and think, is it going to meet what we anticipate the trends are going to be for the next 12 to 24 to 36 months? It is a time of change. There's no doubt about that, and we've got to remember in our business that change is twofold. One, it can be very easy to sit and think, in our example, the 8 people around the table can think about what we think we might want to do differently and why. But the other important aspect of change would be implementation. And when you talk about change, the really key aspect is a cultural change that will be required with the other 82 people that are not currently in our business, and making sure that we are using very consistent change language, very consistent setting. They're establishing a field where people will potentially have to act differently and do different things, and there will be different things happening in our business. And the earlier we can do that and implement that, the better it will be for us in the longer run. So the opportunity, certainly at the minute with the furlough situation, it's quite a drastic situation, of course, but there's certainly a more inquisitive and a more open-mindedness for most employees at the minute to understand that businesses will change and the operational methods of what we do will change. So the kind of 10 things we said is, it is difficult. So number one is be agile. So when you're looking at the bounce back plan, and in our case is make sure it's agile, because what we're dealing with around COVID-19 is an ever-changing landscape. And that goes from the support being offered to businesses, as Alison alluded to. There's constant communication and things are being updated, and there's been a fairly positive response, I'd say, in terms of the business community. Very hard to be perfect, but It also could be a lot worse in most areas. But the plan we don't know what's going to happen, and the plan may have to change, and so agility within that plan makes sense. It might be, and when I say agility, if I was planning to refurbish a space or a concept, I wouldn't consider a concept of any longevity. I would consider the investment as more of a pop-up exercise and more of a short-term attempt, and I wouldn't invest the same amount of money in the space at present, because you just don't simply know how we'll be able to operate for the next 18 months. So it's impossible to say from a longer-term period what a concept might look like at the minute. Also in our business, we and I'll use hotels because it's my field. We very much like to look at our business from a very segmental point of view, and I think I would question that may no longer be relevant. And you may consider different models, such as a generational model. What I mean by that is, rather than looking at simply a corporate guest or a leisure guest or an events guest, look at the generational guest and actually create a plan to attract people from the different generations. And why I say that is COVID-19 is clearly having an impact within different generations. That we can see from the statistics. Also, some of the statistics coming out regards the impact on males and females. So, how in a hotel do we create a safe environment for an older generation? How do we create a safe environment for a younger generation? What's going to attract an older generation, a younger generation? So these are the kind of questions that you might want to ask. So considering the generational differences might be quite relevant for your business today, because they may have different requirements and they may have different reasons as to why they would come to your hotel. The other third point I would say is the crafts have just got craftier. I mean, this isn't a new thing, but certainly the last 15, 20 years, we've seen a massive increase in the amount of people, brewing, gardening, cooking. There's never been as much enthusiasm to be around craft. And of course, the last 4 weeks and probably the next period of time have given us and will give us an opportunity to be in our gardens, to become better gardeners, to start growing our own produce, to be even craftier. So it's likely that it might be a time to look at the supply chain, to look at how things are delivered in a hotel, for example. Is it time for us to look at putting in a fermentation centre? Do we ferment our own sauerkraut and kimchi? That ticks the box of the nutrition that I mentioned. It ticks the box of being craftier. It gives you a talking point, and Alistair alluded to this, being remarkable, don't be average. So suddenly you come into the space and you see, sauerkraut and kimchi being produced, and if the design of it's quite cool, it's a different link to your business. It takes it through a different avenue, but the themes and trends will move through. So, and we're not quite sure how it will be. The supermarket response has been pretty positive. You would say there's been a huge movement to support local shopping, certainly in the last few years, and now through this process, there's been a lot delivered by the bigger supermarkets. So what's that going to do for how we view local shopping, bigger brands? It's maybe unclear. So there'll be some questions there to be asked, but around the crafts and your supply chain and supporting the local people and the local produce is probably going to become quite important. Point number 4 will be habitual changes. And there's some very good statistics around how the time spans that it takes for you do something differently for it to become a permanent change. And this process is actually making us all do things very differently, whether that be working from home, whether that be not commuting, whether that be using our technology like we're doing today. And so there's lots of kind of questions there in terms of what's going to happen. Old sayings about leave your home at the workplace door and leave your work at work, and all of those lines are all changed now because it's not possible, and the circle of your work and life and circle of your balance has changed. We've seen some big corporate companies in London have been working on a program to reduce their office space in London and create home working for a period of time. So is this going to be a motion of change for that to speed up and become a bigger impact? How does that impact us in the hotel? How does that impact our events business? How does that impact our corporates? Probably quite considerably. So then the question is us in the hotel, how do we use our spaces? Because traditionally naming an event space maybe becomes now irrelevant, and that space needs to be looked at from a completely different commercial viewpoint. Also, point 5 I would say is be empathetic, be real, and be patient with people. And we've worked a lot with the guys in terms of really trying to be, that emotional intelligence piece. We're all under pressure, but people respond very differently in a pressured situation, and it's very important that we are mindful of how we communicate, how we listen, how we engage, because when people are in a pressure situation, they also can act differently. And our responsibility, how we culturally operate at the minute, it's very important to be calm, be patient, and be very, very empathetic with people, because and you should really consider this in your recovery plan, because the pressure isn't going to go away anytime soon. It's going to last a considerable period of time. And when you're looking at where the position of your brand or your recovery plan is going to be, I think culture is quite an important point for you to have running through it. Number 6, review your delivery. And what was fit for purpose previously may not be fit for purpose going ahead. And it's really opportunity to kind of sharpen the pencil within what you're doing and what you're delivering and what you're operating. A key question for us would be, in hotels or in restaurants, it's quite common to have rosettes, or and what value do they bring? And that's a question that we ask a lot. But does the rosette accolade in a restaurant now become less relevant? And actually, should there be a similar accolade for your cleaning delivery in the hotel? Because the expectation, of course, is anyone traveling is going to have a higher expectation on cleanliness. If there's a rosette for housekeeping, would that make a difference? Does that stamp of authority give people the confidence that your hotel would actually be a clean place? What impact does that have for people in Airbnbs who maybe don't have a history of visitor? How confident are people going to be that they don't know who's been there before? They don't know the kind of cleaning preferences. Has it been self-cleaned? Has it been, there's a lot of things in our business that, you need to really think, and that would be one example in our business, for example, of where what was relevant before may simply just not be as relevant now in the next period going forward. Number 7, online content is probably very important for your business. We, for the last 15, 20 years, we're certainly lots more writers in our industries and our population than ever we are readers, because everyone is more attuned to writing content. But for the first time in a long time, by staying at home, by being on our mobiles a lot more, by being online a lot more, we are also now becoming a little bit more readers. So people are actually taking a little bit more attention to your content, to your online profile. And this is the opportunity to make sure it's turning over and that you're actually putting relevant things up there. And it's almost that teasing them so that, that when we come out of this, people might want to come and, kind of line you up as a place that they want to go and see or stay or have a drink. So if you haven't looked at it, I would look at what the online profile looks like and what effort's been put in for that. And then look at things. Consumer confidence is going to take a serious hit, and this is probably quite a practical thing. Number 9 or 8, I think, which is look at your T's and C's. Be relevant to your customer. Your customer is not going to have the confidence to book things at present, 3 months out, 4 months out, on the same terms and conditions that you offered a year ago. Coming to the negotiating table, offering those same terms and conditions is probably may lose you more customers than gain you. And at this point, I think it's combining the point I made about being empathetic with your customer. Try and understand your customer, where their situation is, and when you're at that negotiation table, present a set of terms and conditions that are completely relevant to the operating environment that we're in. So, in any kind of negotiations we have in terms of cancellation ability, in terms of reduction in numbers ability. It's being completely flexible and being on the front foot with that kind of scenario. So you're helping give your consumer or your customer a little bit more confidence that it's still okay to do business with us because we get it, we understand it. And the last couple of points are kind of culturally, and I hit on one before, but number 9 is the word why is really, really important right now, because we are in an area of change, and I would absolutely advocate you walk around every single bit of your business and you ask why. Why is it like that? Why do we do it like that? And don't accept the first answer. Once you get that first answer, ask why again. And you probably need to ask it 4 or 5 times before you really ascertain, does this actually bring any value to our business? And I always tell the story of the old tea tray in the hotel room, because, you know, the tea trays in hotel rooms look very, very similar throughout the world. But let me tell you a secret. There's no rule book on the tea tray. Tea tray doesn't have to look like that. And the little bit of hotel madness is a cappuccino in the bar and a coffee in your room are completely different. And it's really odd that as a business we allow that situation to happen, because you wouldn't expect it from a salad, you wouldn't expect it from any other piece, but we accept it on coffee, a product that's one of the most consumed products in the world. And it's a simple thing that's never been asked, or is very rarely asked in a hotel. Why is a tea tray like that? The tea tray is an example, but everything in your business you should question. You should question why, and why, because you need to change habits here. And if you don't ask that question, you're not strong enough to get to the right answer, then real change may not happen. And my last point is, don't forget the team, because best laid plans and bounce back plans only work when you've got true engagement. And also, small amount of people don't always have the best ideas. So if you can create an environment or a forum where you allow people to be actively engaging and sending through their ideas, how things could look different. Often it's an opportunity for maybe a team member to voice a frustration, that maybe, now is the time to look at that, and why have we done it that way, and why is it looking like that? And also, don't underestimate the amount of time they've had away from the business. And whilst they may not be thinking about it in the same amount of times that we are, they still will be. And it's really important to, 1, gather any ideas or thoughts they have, and 2, keep them fully engaged in that framework, because when it comes to the point where you want to implement it, you're going to need all of these people to really understand it and be able to do it. So, but anyway, just to kind of summarize, it's really trying to look, 1, at what are the trends going to be, how are they going to change, and then it's creating a plan that allows you to maximize on those trends, so that your brand or your business is right in the curve, if that makes sense. And that's it. Thank you for listening. And I think it's over to Ross, who will pull together kind of any questions at this point.
Brilliant, Dale. Thank you very much, and thanks to Alistair as well. Some really, really good, interesting points there, and some takeaways, I think, for all of us, which is great. So thank you very much. Brilliant. We've got a question from Shona. Probably just bring Shona in for this one, from Zero Waste Scotland. Shona, are you there? Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I can. Yes, I noticed I put a couple of spelling mistakes in as well, so it's probably easier if I read it.
No problem.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions, Dale. That was really interesting, thank you. And just to give you a bit of background, my role is in reducing food waste with Zero Waste Scotland, and that's with establishments like yourselves, restaurants, cafes, schools, universities, you name it. And as you might imagine, our work has completely come to a halt, and we're also encountering new and different problems that we didn't have before, but we're also wondering how to support businesses to return to a place that's actually perhaps even better than the one that they had before on a food waste front. So my 2 questions were, first of all, does sustainability have a place anywhere in your bounce back plan? And there is no judgment about that. It's just like a really serious kind of need to know question. And if it doesn't, why doesn't it? And then also, if we were to provide support to businesses, what would you recommend? just when you were speaking right at the end there, and your point 9, where you were talking about questioning the why of everything, that kind of made me think that is perhaps an opportunity where we say, well, why was your food operation like that before? And is there something that we can do to help you change that? So a bit long-winded, but yes, thank you. That's my questions.
No, perfect. Good questions, Shona. Thank you. Yeah, no, it does. It's got a really important aspect, and actually, you know, I kind of probably didn't mention enough, but the whole community aspect is really important here, from both your sustainability, but also community, because that, you know, the impact on our local community is massive. You know, we have to recognise that, and when our bounce back plan should actively think about what activities are we going to do to support our community. In regards to the specific food situation, I think one of the biggest examples we're probably talking about, Shona, is no more buffets, and I think the sort of statistic we worked on, by not offering any buffets in the hotel at breakfast, meetings and events, or any of those kind of processes, you reduce your food waste by somewhere between 25 and 33%, is what we estimate. So that activity would be something that may change in our delivery, which would tick you know, a very clear sustainability box, but also be more appropriate in times ahead in terms of how we're managing the COVID situation. So hopefully that kind of gives you an answer to us very much thinking about that. The challenge when you don't offer buffets is also making sure that you don't move the problem, so that you don't reduce your food waste, but then suddenly your recycling waste increases because what's being delivered is being delivered in a takeaway packaging or something else. So it's making sure that any change doesn't just move a problem. That makes sense. And in terms of what you asked then about your plan and how you know might engage with businesses. I mean, I don't know your business well enough, but what we would probably do, what we've been sort of looking at doing and doing actually is talking to our customers and asking, you know, what do you think is needed from us in the next year to 18 to 24 months? What do you anticipate that to look like? And actually, how could we support you with that? And I think often the supply chain it's a funny one, because you know, if you look at, and it's maybe from zero waste, take a different market, like take a drinks market, for example. And a drinks market will have the business model in the drinks market, they'll have marketing budgets where they will support businesses with different activations. Now, I'm not saying that model works in a zero waste basis, but you know, here's an example of, ask the question, why couldn't that work there? You know, rather than, you know, Cinzano or Campari leading an activation with a hotel, why couldn't a waste company do that? You know, and maybe it's a time to just ask the question and say, that's what drinks companies do. You know, we've never really thought about that from a recycling point of view, and it may have absolutely no benefit, but that would be an example of where I would look at those other kind of facets working within the industries. What have they done previously? Why has it worked? And could any of those kind of, you know, different afflictions actually work in our industry? Because that would be a game changer, because you don't have anyone going out with anything like that in your area of the business doing that or thinking that way in regards to the hotel. Sorry, I feel like I waffled there. I don't know if that made any sense.
Oh no, that was you.
Thanks for that, Dale. We've got Alistair with a question here as well. Alistair, can I bring you in? Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I'm just going to read out what I've written there. Dale, as an insider in the hospitality industry, how do you think businesses in your sector will act after things start to return to normal, or as normal as we're going to have? Are they going to tighten their purse strings as they try to fight their way back in, or will they spend to try and rebuild and get back on the radar?
$1 million question, Alistair. Thanks for that one. I think the first part will start on how you know, how has recovery sort of happened in our industry, and if you look back it's sort of, there's a few articles out at the minute from, Lausanne Hotel School and, pretty well with Harvard in terms of well-respected kind of, and they all kind of conclude that, unfortunately, for our industry, tends to be that the hotel recovery will be through, 18 months, 12 to 18 months of promotional activity, which benefits the consumer because the price point will move. Now, that's not really what, the businesses will want to hear, because naturally it's diluting your ability on revenue. Now that's a very generic comment in terms of the general overview of what industry will do, and that's not necessarily market specific. So now, and so it really depends where you sit. What some people will say, now's the time to invest. But I would caution that slightly, that things are changing so much that might be the time to invest, but it's actually making sure that the concept has enough agility that your investment is a sensible one, and that the concept is relevant, but isn't can be made more relevant on a little bit less of a budget. And it's probably looking more along the line, if you're going to change something within food and drink, look at a pop-up model, because they can be developed quite naturally, quite excitingly, and they're not meant to be there forever. So you can be quite clever with a concept like that that's fit for purpose for 18 months and is actually meant to go away anyway. So, and that allows you to be able to do something interesting in your business for a short period of time without actually having a huge amount of investment.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, and we've got a question here from Shona Hamnet as well. For Dale, sorry. So Shona, can we bring you in? Are you there? You want to unmute yourself if you haven't done so already.
Yeah, apologies. It was just having a little. Yeah, Dale, how would you? Obviously, we all know staff resist change in any normal circumstances. This is unprecedented. So, how are you intending to combat staff resistance for like the new ways of working when you're doing your bounce back plan?
I think probably stems from how you operate generally. My view is personally is always be transparent and honest, and really try and trust people, from day one, because you create an environment where, I've kind of got a saying in the business: if it's good news or bad news or indifferent, the only thing I can guarantee, I'll give you honest news. And that allows you, at least when you are communicating to people, they know that what you're saying is being said because there's a reason behind it. I think, Shona, nobody's, sorry, I was going to use the word fortunate. No one's fortunate in this environment, but from that change point of view, there's an external change within our environment which has affected every single person pretty much, on our planet. So you have an external change situation going on, which allows you to refer to that. And as long as the reference made to that is relevant and appropriate, i.e., it's not just been referenced because we're changing something that just needed changed anyway, and it's got no relation to COVID, but actually we're changing this because this has arisen, and going forward in our business, these changes are kind of necessary. But we want you to give our ideas and talk to us about how they can be implemented. And also, I think that people just make sure they know there's a review period. I've worked on a few different brands, and I think the frustration's always been that sometimes when you look at a brand concept, that the person operating the ideas within the concept come to a conclusion that something doesn't work very quickly. Whereas if you outline at the start, look, the guarantee with this brand is some things will not work. There's a review process in 12 weeks. There's one in 26 weeks. There's one in, and you set the outlines that what we need to do as operators is implement as intended. And then, but there's a framework for the things that don't work, how we'll review them, and then how we will change them if necessary, and then engage very much with the people that they're part of that process. And I think that aspect's quite important. They know that that's coming, because if you don't let them know there's a review can happen, then sometimes they feel it's just a constant frustration, and they can disengage or cut corners or not really implement it properly, or not care about it actually.
That's great, thank you.
Brilliant. Well, I think that is that was the last question, and that pretty much takes us to time. So I'll hand back over to Sarah, and she can finish up for us. Sarah, are you there?
I am. Thanks very much, Ross.
Thank you.
And thanks very much to both our speakers. That was a really, really interesting session. I liked Dale's ask why and keep on asking why. I think some people just take the first answer as it is, and that's why it does happen. But actually delving a little bit deeper might help in the long run. So yeah, thanks again, speakers. Really, really interesting. Thanks everybody for joining us. We've got some more sessions on webinars next week, so head on to the website to find out more. Have a great weekend when it comes round. I'm sure you'll all be busy in gardens if it's nice weather, fingers crossed. And we'll see you all next week. See you later. Bye.